I'm more aware now and mature in my business thinking, and have evolved to know that you have to have that good mix of delusion and doubt. Although you need a little bit of that to believe in yourself, even maybe more than you should, but it needs to be checked a little bit, I think, with some doubt. And that's where I am now. I have days where the doubt trumps the delusion, for sure. You have a day where you think you have a great business owner that would really benefit from your services, and for whatever reason, at the 11th hour, they find an excuse not to continue with your services or engage you. Those days bum me out, and that doubt can creep in. What is it about me? What is it about the system? Like, why did they say no to me? Other days, the delusion trumps the doubt, and that way you've created helps people. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to put their hand up and say yes. But for those that do, it's really going to help them. And it's going to make their life better. It's going to make the people in their business better. It might make the lives of their families even better. It might make their whole community better if you really widen the net large enough. So that's really what keeps me going.
What's your source, whether spiritually, or what's your practice to overcome those doubts so you can continue putting one foot in front of the other?
I think that's it. It's just keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's it.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and this is your podcast for leadership, inspiration, and impact. Today will be no different. I got a friend, Andy Clark, chiming in from Costa Rica, much warmer than where we're sitting today. You see me, I got one of my coats on because the podcast studio is a little bit cold this morning, but we're going to get through it. So let me tell you a little bit about Andy before we hop into conversation. On paper, Andy is a best-selling author and the creator of the Whole Pie System, helping small business owners build companies that are more profitable, more impactful, and actually enjoyable to run. We have much aligned visions there, my friend. But what interests me more for this conversation is the man behind that framework, the husband, the dad, and the guy who walked away from the safe path, rethought how he worked, and rebuilt life and business around what actually matters. So this isn't a commercial. This is a real conversation about the trade-offs, the breakdowns, and convictions that shaped Andy's view of profit, impact, and enjoyment, and how that translates into the way he leads and serves others today. With that being said, Andy, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, you see, he's got the T-shirt and the guns out. I'm all covered up. A little different dichotomy today. But before we get into your story, I always like to get a little groundbreaker. Let's start with something simple and human. You're an author. I'm an author. What's the last full book you read? Cover to cover, and what did it change about how you think or lead?
Oh, does it have to be fiction or nonfiction? Does it matter?
Whichever, does not matter.
Yeah, the last book I read was called One Good Thing. It's fiction, like historical fiction, kind of about Italy during World War II and Nazi occupation. Very interesting. A woman had to take charge of her friend's young boy and navigate him through occupied Italy, through the war where bombs were falling not only by the Nazis, but also by the Allies. Very super interesting. What did I learn about leadership? Oh, man. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I suppose this woman who had to take charge of this young boy, I mean, talk about leadership. Talk about self-sacrifice to make sure that she could do right by her friend, who was the boy's mother, and make sure that the boy lived through the war. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what can be more important than that in terms of leadership.
Right. Well, yeah, self-sacrifice is a big lesson in leadership because a lot of people take on leadership role for the title, when in actuality, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that title. So that's good.
Yeah. Interesting. That's it's neat. That's a great question because it's I don't know if most people talk about business books when you ask them that question, but having just written a business book and read hundreds of them, I've been on a on a fiction kick lately rather than business book kick. So that's the last few books I've read have all been fiction.
I may have to pick that up, that piece of advice there, because I think I'm over 1,000 now of personal development, leadership books. And the last 3 that I've read just haven't captured my attention so much. The last one, to answer the question for myself, I read was Deep Work by Cal Newport. And I got the premise really quickly. And I'm like, man, this could have been a lot shorter.
There a lot of business books are like that. I hope that that's not what people say about mine. But I agree with you that sometimes it's like you get the premise and move on to the next one.
Yeah. All right. So take us back to an earlier version of Andy. Before Whole Pie, before the book, what did life and business look like? And where were you feeling the most tension or misalignment?
Oh, I love that word, misalignment, for a lot of reasons. So how do I tell this story relatively quickly and keep your audience's attention? I practiced law for about a dozen years. I was a business lawyer. Interestingly, I was never that interested in business. I just had this conversation with someone the other day. I went to law school, like I wasn't born into entrepreneurship. Is that a beer you just cracked there?
No, nicotine.
Nicotine pouch?
Yeah, I don't have a cigar on me, so a nicotine pouch is going to suffice.
So I did a arts degree in Canadian. I'm Canadian, by the way, living in Costa Rica. I did an arts degree in Canadian studies in my undergrad. I can't do a whole lot with that, so I went to law school, like most people do. Don't know what else they want to do, and then when I started working as a lawyer in Canada, you do this thing called articling, which is basically your 1-year apprenticeship, and that's where you decide whether you want to be a litigator, like a courtroom type, or a corporate lawyer, so not a courtroom type. And I didn't like the litigator stuff, so that left me with being a corporate lawyer. So I kind of stumbled into being a corporate and commercial or a business lawyer, kind of by accident. And what I realized over 10 to 12 years of being in that world was that I became really curious and interested in business and in running businesses and the challenges that small business owners faced. And where I grew up and where I practiced law in Eastern Canada, the majority of clients and the majority of businesses were small businesses. They're maybe not necessarily mom and pop shops, but certainly not publicly traded, giant corporations. So that's kind of what I knew and what I learned and what I was advising, and just really came to appreciate and respect and admire business owners, entrepreneurs, for the risk taking. They're the economic drivers of our communities. They're really like, I consider small business owners to be like the fabric of our communities. They
Agreed.
They're innovators. They're risk takers. They're hard workers. They sponsor the hockey teams and the soccer teams. They're philanthropists. Like literally, the fabric of our communities depends on small business. So that's great. But then what I became really interested in after practicing law and jumping into small business and running and leading and managing businesses in a few different industries, really understanding how hard it can be to be a small business owner, to own and operate a small business, that almost like the cards are stacked against you with government red tape and legislation and taxes and, competing against the big guys. What did we see in COVID? We saw this, all the small business owners shut and all the big business owners get to stay open. I mean, that's kind of crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? So
did that happen in Canada as well as America?
And 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's my story and sort of what led me to this mission that I'm on now to help small business owners become more profitable, impactful, and enjoyable. It's because I know how hard it is and how the cards are stacked against them. And I've learned a lot over the years, made some mistakes, and now have this model and framework and system that I help small business owners implement into their businesses so they make more money and have more fun along the way.
Yeah, what I find fascinating about your career arc is in parallel to mine, or I should say kind of opposite of mine, where I fell in love with business right away. My dad was a business owner, and I went to college to play football. But while I was there, I took some business classes before dropping out, and then just hopped right into business. And so you were like, wasn't of interest, but you were highly observant to understand and appreciate what business owners went through and found a passion and proclivity through that work. So it's just kind of interesting. And it shows that people can come at these things from much different paths.
You got it. Like, you never, we talk a lot about how where you are now, you can look back and you can connect all the dots, right? All the dots have led you to where you are today, but looking forward, it's impossible to see the dots. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Steve Jobs quote, right?
Is it? I don't know. Did I say
Yeah.
Steve Jobs? Okay.
I think that was one of his famous talks at one of the Apple presentations. It definitely had the dots in there. It sounded familiar, but either way, like you and I were talking about before we got on air, we don't know if anything's original anymore. So it had to have been said or thought of at some point along the time. So you've said that small business success isn't just profit, and I 100% agree. It's profit, impact, and enjoyment. So what was a moment in your own career where you had profit on paper, but knew, I'm not enjoying this, and I'm not sure I'm making the impact I'm called to make?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. That was in the practice of law. It's a fairly typical story, really, of someone who's making good money, practicing law, doing something they just really didn't love to do. And the reason why I stayed in it for so long, like over a decade, is because I didn't hate it either. I liked it okay. I was pretty good at it, not great at it probably. And I realized that, I'm still at 10 years into my professional career, early 30s, mid 30s. There's still a lot of runway left. Right. And so did I really want to do something that I didn't really love to do, that I didn't feel like I was put on this earth to do? Did I want to continue to do that for the next 20, 30 years? And the answer was no. And when I told my wife this, it scared the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Because, she is a business owner. She's a doctor of chiropractic, actually. So she had her own chiropractic office. So we were a dual income family. But when I decided that I didn't want to practice law anymore without really a next step in mind, at that point, that was pretty scary. But I just knew, like, these points in your life where you have to listen to your body wisdom and your gut, and it's just like, this has to change. I can't keep doing this. This wasn't what I was meant to do, because, I didn't feel like I was making the impact, or as much of an impact that I could in other people's lives. And I wasn't enjoying it. So while the money side was there, the impact and the enjoyment side weren't there for me. So I decided to make a change.
Yeah. Well, what you said there is so true, and most people don't do it. In fact, there's a study that says 95% of people stay in work that they're good at, but don't actually like. Right. And you found that kind of that pressure point or precipice where you're like, I'm good at this, I just don't love it. And so what was that decision maker? Like, were you building the vision while you were still practicing law, or did you jump out of the plane and kind of built the parachute on the way down?
I had a parachute, but I had a few holes in it. Let's put it that way. So while I was practicing law, I actually started this business called a wellness lawyer, where because my wife's a doctor of chiropractic, I would be tagging along to conferences with her. This is why that word misalignment, to circle back to your earlier question, is a good one for me, in terms of chiropractic and aligned spines, and what happens to the spine if it's misaligned. All kinds of not good things happen to your health. So and it's the same in business, right? If as you know, Josh, like where those misalignments are, it's part of what you and I do is we try to find where those misalignments are. We correct those misalignments so that the organism can grow and can succeed. Oh my God, I got off track. Take me back to the question.
Well, I was asking about if you built the parachute on the way down. You said
Yeah.
you had a few holes in your parachute.
Yeah. So I was, observing that a lot of lawyers uh, aren't particularly aren't particularly happy. The business model itself it's a tough business model. Effectively, it's trading time for money, which isn't a great business model. And it's, at least back then, I believe it's changed a little bit, but since then, but it's a tough business model. It's a grind. And what I was observing as a relatively young lawyer, 10 years in, was that there wasn't really like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like the partners in these law firms work just as hard or harder than anyone else. So it was like, it's not like you get to a certain point where you can take your foot off the gas. So that didn't really appeal to me that much. So while I'm continuing practicing law, my first foray into entrepreneurship was wellness lawyer, trying to sell wellness to lawyers in various ways, in various programs that I had. And actually, the first book that I read was about this. The first book that I wrote was about this. Anyway, everybody told me what a great idea, that lawyers would line up around the block to sign up for this, and it was a spectacular failure. It just never got the traction that I hoped it would. Maybe I was on the bleeding edge. Maybe if I rolled something like that out now, which is close to 20 years later, it might gain more traction. So that was kind of my parachute, was to jump full time into that, and it didn't work out very well. So, talk about learning lessons. I learned a lot of lessons through that experience. And then I ended up getting into management roles in small businesses, one in healthcare, one in financial services, over the next 8 years, actually leading and running small businesses. The first one was around $1 million in annual revenue. The next one was around 4 to 5 million annual revenue. So that's the sandbox that I kind of play in. And those are the types of businesses that I work with now, in that kind of 1 million to 5 million range.
That's great. Did you experience, so when that, say you use the word spectacular failure, and you had jumped out of the plane, left your law background, what kind of doubt or imposter syndrome did you face in that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the doubt, I think I was almost naive to think that it was going to be easier than it was, quite frankly. So the doubt actually was, I surrounded myself with some people that believed in me, and I thought we had some good stuff going. I made some mistakes. I think I thought I was better in a few areas than I was, but the doubt was actually not that bad for me. I was actually pretty confident that I could do it. But then that imposter syndrome comes 100%. It's like the sales aren't coming as quickly as you hoped they would. Everyone who said they were going to line up to buy your services finds an excuse not to, and they don't. Right? And then you're like, oh shit. And then you got to pretend, fake it till you make it, that you're this, this lawyer who had this grand plan to stop practicing law and walk away from that income to start this business, and it's not going well. So that makes you an imposter pretty fast. That's for sure. And then you're dealing with life at home, with, a spouse who I love dearly, is still together today, my favorite person in the world, who's telling me, who advised me not to do it in the first place. And then my exit plan that I told her was going to be great, is a parachute with all these holes in it. So yeah, imposter is a good word for how I was feeling at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I read this quote yesterday, and it just rings so true to me. It's easier to make a client a friend than a friend a client.
Whew. Great. I haven't heard that. That's so true. So true.
So true. And I think about some of my great friends now, many of them are clients. And I think about some of my great friends that prior to me exiting my last business and starting this coaching practice, that still haven't become clients and that could really use the work, but for whatever reason, they're not. But this goes to be true with whether you start a retail store or anything else. You think the people that are going to line up around the block for you, they don't, or they come and say, hey, give me a discount.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I'm trying to build a business here, and you're my friend and you're asking me for a discount. So lesson to everyone, don't ask your friends that start a new business for a discount. Even if they offer you one, say, no, I'm going to pay full price to support you. So good little lesson there. But my ADD brain just took us off a little bit. All right. So a lot of entrepreneurs build structures to feel in control, but underneath there's fear. Fear of failure, of not providing, of being exposed, like that imposter syndrome we just spoke of. Where have you personally had to confront fear as you built Whole Pie and step more into the public eye?
Yeah. When you develop your own thing, which I have, it's built. It takes components of things that other people have, built, or come up with, but essentially it's this new compilation of ideas, techniques, tools that can help a small business owner. When you do that, when it's you have created something that didn't exist before, there's always going to be doubt, I think. And maybe I'm more aware now because of the experience that I just shared with you earlier about Wellness Lawyer, where I thought everything was going to go great. Like, I'm more aware now and mature kind of in my business thinking, and have evolved to know that there's that mix. To be a good entrepreneur, you have to have that good mix of delusion and doubt. And be completely delusional, although you need a little bit of that to believe in yourself, even maybe more than you should. But it needs to be checked a little bit, I think, with some doubt. And that's kind of where I am now. I have days where the doubt trumps the delusion, for sure. You have a day where you think you have a great business owner that would really benefit from your services, and for whatever reason at the 11th hour they find an excuse not to continue with your services or engage you. That those days bum you out, and that doubt can creep in. Well, what is it? What is it about me? What is it about the system? What is it about, like, why did they say no to me? Other days the delusion trumps the doubt, and that what you've created helps people, and it's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to put their hand up and say yes, but for those that do, it's really going to help them, and it's going to make their life better. It's going to make the people in their business better. It might make the lives of their families even better. It might make their whole community better if you really widen the net large enough. So that's really kind of what keeps me going. I don't know if that resonates with your listeners or with you, Josh, but that's kind of...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what was popping in mind is, on those days of doubt, like, what's your source, whether spiritually, or what's your practice to overcome those doubts so you can continue putting one foot in front of the other?
Well, I think that's it. It's just keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's it. No sense feeling sorry for yourself. No sense. You can have a little bitch session, which with whoever might listen to you, to get it off your chest or whatever. But, business isn't for the faint of heart. Like, you're going to have some knocks along the way. It's part of what makes the journey rewarding and impactful at the end of the day. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So you just have to, when you do have those setbacks, I find, or when you are feeling that doubt, reconnect with your purpose. What are you trying to accomplish? Like, why you do it in this first place? Which I've shared with you earlier. And then just keep putting one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. That's how I go about it.
Yeah. It was interesting as you were saying this and talking about the Whole Pie system, which we'll get into a little bit more, but, I was at, you and I didn't talk about this, but I'm also an EOS implementer. And I was at an EOS conference a couple months back, and Gino was given the story of the early days. And he was a couple of the original guys that bought in with him were talking about the early days and how, no one had ever heard of this EOS thing. And they're out there and they knew they could help. And it had helped not only Gino's family business, but also the businesses he'd engaged with. But, like, there wasn't, no pun intended, the traction around EOS that there is today, but it was just continually fighting to find those individuals that wanted to buy in from a client side, that also wanted to buy in to go, hey, I want to raise my hand and be an implementer and help you guys in this mission. It was a fascinating conversation because now EOS is worldwide. It's got hundreds of thousands of businesses running on it. And for us as implementers, there's still a lot of people that haven't heard of it. And I have to explain, hey, it stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. This is how it works. There's some of that, but then there's others that are like, hey, I've heard a lot about this thing. My friend runs a business that runs on it and they swear by it and that I have to do it. So I want to talk to you. So talk a little bit about that now as I lay that story out. Like, where are you at in your arc with Whole Pie?
Yeah. So shout out to Traction and EOS. Like it's great. Somebody put the book Traction in my hands about 10 years ago, and read it and just like, wow, like this is great. And then, and EOS is great. Like, in many ways has given me the confidence to build what I've built because the kind of the model already exists. My impressions, of EOS, in my experience with it is that it is kind of geared and designed toward bigger SMEs and beyond than the smaller ones that I know and have worked with and have worked in. I think the challenges and the communication and the tools and stuff, in my opinion, needed to be a little bit different. The approach needed to be a little bit different than EOS. And so that's what I've done with the Whole Pie system. It sometimes when I try to explain what it is that I've done, Josh, sometimes I'll say, have you ever heard of EOS? Because for people that have heard of EOS, then there's that common reference point, and then I can explain sort of how my system is different and how it targets maybe a different business demographic. Where am I in the trajectory? Still early days, probably where Gina was talking about. The system has been around for about 6 years. It's been tried and tested with lots and lots of small businesses, Canada, Costa Rica, US. And then, of course, there's a lot of trial and error with it. There's a lot of trying it out, what works well, what doesn't work well, refining, reshaping, remodeling. And then at about 5 years in, I thought, okay, now this thing is polished enough. Now this thing has proven its worth in enough different businesses and enough different industries in that, $1 to $5 million mark range, that it's time to get this material into more people's hands. And so that was the idea behind the book, Getting the Whole Pie. It's literally a step-by-step. This is how you implement the Whole Pie system into your small business.
Yeah.
It's more workbooky than Traction is for EOS, and which I think is helpful for the busy small business owner. And so, yeah, as I compare it to EOS and Traction, early days. I mean, I'm 20 years behind, right?
Yep.
But when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time?
Today.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Your assessment, just to go back to it, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you really try to serve that 500,000 to 5 million demographic. Is that about right? Okay. So I think your assessment is probably largely true about EOS versus the whole pie. Because when I talk to business owners, I want at least 3 members on the leadership team. Can EOS work with 1 or 2? Yes, but it's very difficult if you're in all the seats. I also talk to business owners, you got to be at least 2 million, but there has to be enough revenue, because I don't want to come in and so you're going to pay me, 30 to 50 grand a year, and that eats into your margin so much that you're not able to so you're you're pretty spot on where it does need to be a little bit larger than what you're looking for it to really, again, no pun intended, get traction and run EOS effectively in a company.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, I did a lot of research into EOS and, so I'm quite familiar with it. Do I know all the ins and outs like you do? No. But one of the things I wanted to do was make this accessible. So the book makes it accessible. Obviously, it's 20. Actually, it's a 99-cent barrier to entry if you buy the Kindle. But it's it's $20 to buy the paperback, which I recommend because it is kind of workbooky. So that tends to work better than the Kindle. But I wanted to make it accessible, for the business owner that need that accountability and that guide and that coach to help them like you do with EOS implementation. And so the barrier to entry is much less than 30 to 50K a year to hire an EOS implementer. And one of the ways that I do that is actually do group implementation. So I know you do a mastermind yourself, Josh. I don't know the ins and outs of that either, but I don't believe EOS has a group implementation model, which it's good because it can keep costs lower. I think quite a bit lower than the EOS model, and it also offers that ability to learn from other business owners in the same range that you're going through the implementation phase with. So that tends to work well.
No, that's really good. And to your point, my mastermind, I'm not implementing EOS. Am I giving some principles, teaching some tools? Yes. But you can't do a full implementation if you don't have the whole leadership team working with one business. So it's interesting thinking about that number, 500,000 to 5 million. Two things come to mind. It's big enough to be heavy, but still small enough to be fragile, right? Those businesses. And so what's a story of a client where the breakthrough had less to do with the spreadsheet and more to do with conversation about who they wanted to be as a spouse, a parent, or a leader?
Yeah, a good one comes to mind was a client that I started working with like in the early days. Like they were one of the first people that I said, "Hey, let's try this. Let's try this model. Let's try this. Let's try to build this structure into your business." And we're really going to put, we're going to put those money, targets and metrics and goals there, but we're also going to put those impact and those enjoyment goals and targets and metrics there together, side by side. We're not going to allow your enjoyment or the difference you want to make in your business to take a back seat to just purely financial metrics. And it was interesting in this business because it was a monthly accounting practice. And which would tend to be good at the numbers, not so good at the soft stuff. And this was a business owner, so I was working directly with the owner. She had a small team, and she was overwhelmed, like just overwhelmed, stressed, working nights, weekends, and the result, if we can fast forward, we still work together 5 years later. More money than ever, less work than ever, less stress than ever. Now, did that happen overnight? Nope. One of the big kind of turning points, and she would talk about this today if she were here, was, sometimes you just have to get in front of a whiteboard or a blackboard to break stuff down. And you would know this as an EOS implementer, right? And so the crux of the problem in this case was I have too much work and not enough capacity to deliver it. And I want to deliver good work, but something's got to give. I can't deliver good work to all my clients if I'm going to continue to serve the amount of clients that I have to the level that I want with the team that I have. Okay, so these are the problems. So we just had to whiteboard it, and we had to get some data down in terms of, okay, how many clients are there? What's the total hourly, monthly obligation to satisfy these clients to the level that you want? And what's your totals? What's the capacity of your team to actually deliver that? And so we did that, and there was a big gap. There was way too much demand, not enough capacity to meet that demand. So good problem to have, I suppose. Client acquisition wasn't the issue. it was meeting that client demand. And so from that whiteboard session, which when you look back on it, seems like, duh, of course you would do that. But she had never done it. And when she could see those numbers, like, 500 hours a month, for example, of client demands, and we have the ability to deliver only 350 of those hours, there's a problem. So then you can make a plan. You either transition some clients away, you hire some people, you use systems better, automate things better, blah, blah, blah. And so through a combination of all of those things over the next quarter and year and a couple of years, got to the point where, she doesn't need to be there most of the time. So that's a good result.
That's if you just surmised that and didn't share the whole story to say more time, more money, less stress, I think any business owner would want that outcome. Whether it takes 5 months or 5 years, that's a worthy cause to strive for. So that's an awesome testimonial. So in one of your writings, you emphasize enjoyment as a serious metric, not a soft one, right? So what practices or boundaries in your own calendar protect enjoyment, and where do you still notice yourself drifting back into grind mode, if you still do?
Yeah. So I'm a bit weird because I don't mind grind mode. I don't think most entrepreneurs do mind it. That's why we have the risk taking. Yeah. But what I found is maybe this will help a little bit better. Maybe it's not you, but I even find myself not looking for play or joy as much because I do get so much enjoyment out of what I do. But there always resides the 7-year-old child in all of us that still wants to have adventure and play more often. And I feel like most of us entrepreneurs are probably the worst at actually allowing ourselves to do that. Yeah. So there's a lot in this question around enjoyment. So for me personally, it's a combination of, I think it's just what I observed, growing up, is that I didn't have parents who worked all the time. Like I had parents who were at my hockey games. I had parents that exercised, that for lack of a better word, they led a balanced life. They provided for my two brothers and I, but I never felt like they were that we came second to a business or to money making. I don't know how, my parents did a great job. So I think a lot of that is what we observe, and that gets ingrained in us. So I grew up, I think, with a balanced perspective on what it meant to be successful, which for me meant, yes, of course, money is important, but isn't the aim and purpose of life to be happy and to enjoy a ride? So although I couldn't articulate, it's taken me 50 years to be able to articulate that and to understand that. I don't think I could do that earlier on, but it's always been sort of part of my DNA. I think it's one of the reasons why I self-selected out of the practice of law, because I saw myself surrounded by people who I didn't feel shared that sense. And so I think, I guess I think it comes fairly naturally to me to be able to balance things. And I do enjoy the grind, so I don't mind working really hard. My wife will tell you that. But I also make time for adventure and for sport and for leisure time and all of that stuff. Now, for a business owner for whom that doesn't come naturally, because that's more often the case than what I've just described in my experience. Yes, there are. It is a muscle that you can exercise and learn how to flex. And there, depending on the situation, there are different exercises, different tactics that we will use to try to inject a little bit more business owner first mentality, rather than business owner take the backseat mentality. And so we can, if you like, we can talk about a couple of those. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, let's give one example, because I think you're right. This does not come naturally for.
Yeah. So Um, so let's think about um, it- so a, a real simple tactic that we'll use if a business owner is, is being honest and they're saying, you know, business by a lot of metrics, the business is doing pretty well, but if like you used the word heavy before, it feels heavy. I just thought it would. I thought it would feel better. I don't really love leading this business as much as I did a few years ago. So if they find themselves in that situation, start small. So let's itemize what is frustrating you in your business. And I like the word frustration because it's emotional and we all get frustrated. And so let's itemize, what is what is frustrating you? Because if it's frustrating you, by definition, it's impeding your enjoyment. If you can eliminate a frustration in your business, then therefore you will enjoy it at least a little bit more. And every business owner has frustrations. So let's itemize those frustrations. What is frustrating you right now? Is it a person on your team? Is it a task that you're doing? Is it, the government? Is it, what is it? Whatever it is. And then you go, okay, well, what can we control on this list? There are some things you can control. There's some things you cannot control. So let's look at the ones that you can control and let's pick one and let's make a plan to either eliminate that frustration, over the next week or month or whatever, or at least reduce it. So do we need to get rid of somebody on your team that's driving you crazy? Well, then let's make a plan to do that. Do we need to get you stop doing this certain thing and get somebody else to do it? Then let's do that. Does that make sense, Josh,
Yeah.
in terms of a very specific tactic that,
Yeah.
and then once you do it once, you're like, oh, that worked. Do it again. And that can really help take this, what can seem like this, airy fairy concept of enjoyment and make it very specific and tactical.
Yeah, I actually, what brought to mind was when I had my hard pivot after my last exit was I made a really fancy T chart. And I always say it's fancy because no T chart is fancy. It's very simple. But instead of numbers, on the left side, I wrote, what did I love about my previous role or life? And on the right side, I wrote, what did I hate? And then the powerful question wasn't making that list or exercise. The question that I asked afterwards was what was powerful. What if I could design a life where I only did the stuff that I loved and eliminated, or at the very least mitigated, the stuff on the right side that I hated?
Mm.
And then start to ideate on that. So it could be the frustration thing. It could be my T chart, but it really allows you to start figuring out where does your positive energy come from and how do you get more of that? Because when you get more of that, you will be a far more productive leader, husband, spouse, father, whatever it may be, when you're finding more enjoyment in your work and your life.
Amen. 100% believe that. And, I think just one more point that I'll add to that is that, in this small business context, in terms of the small businesses that I work with, and that's say 500K to 5 million range, it's still small. So we're not saying, hey, put on these rose-colored glasses and all your problems will go away, right? That's not it. We're not saying, hey, all the stuff that you don't like to do, let's just hire a whole bunch of people and they'll do all that. Because that's not realistic often when you're still in this stage where money is getting better and better and better, but it's not, it's not unlimited.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important to understand that, this is step by step. It's very tactical. What are the top priorities? What are the highest leverage points that we can improve in your business today? Is it on the money side? Is it on the impact side? Is it on the enjoyment side? And then we go from there.
That's awesome. One last question before I ask my final. Fast forward 20, 30 years. I love the legacy topic. So I'm going to ask you to think about your own legacy. So we fast forward 20 or 30 years, forget revenue numbers and follower counts, forget how many books you've sold. What do you hope for your kids, your clients, and your closest friends say about the way you showed up as a man and a leader?
I would like people to say about me that he lived a great life. And what does that mean? It means that he understood that that living the best possible life that you can is actually one of the most noble and spiritual things that you can do on this planet, is to take advantage of this incredible gift that you've been given to live a great life, to make it to make a difference in other people's lives, spouse, kids, relatives, parents, community members, and through business, your clients. In this case, small businesses. I would love it if small businesses would say, you know what, this getting to work with Andy and getting to apply the concepts of this system helped me as the client, as the business owner, live a better life, have a better business, and dare I dream, have a better marriage, have a better relationship with my kids. I know that's a little bit long to fit on a tombstone, but that's kind of where my head's at on legacy.
Oh, I'm sure ChatGPT could give you a shorter epitaph, but no, that's really good, brother. Because that's the thing is, once we identify our purpose, it's living and stepping into that every single day. Our legacy is built one day at a time, one step at a time, often not something you're going to get to 30 years from now. So, all right, hold up your book again. I want everyone to see it. All right, so getting the whole pie. Where's the best spot for people to get it?
Amazon, baby.
Amazon. So for those of you running that business, getting the whole pie, I know that's what you want. Business is as hard as it is. As Andy alluded to earlier, I share the same belief. Entrepreneurship's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. So books like Andy's, systems like Andy's, systems like EOS, help it just a little bit easier from tools, experts, guidance from people that have been down this path just a little bit further than you are. So I recommend you go get that book. While you're on Amazon, pick up the Kairos Code if you haven't yet. Would love for you to read my book as well. Where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah, so I hang out on LinkedIn. So Andy Clark on LinkedIn. I'm the most important Andy Clark that's on LinkedIn, so you shouldn't have trouble finding me.
I was going to say your name's not it's got to be pretty popular, but like he said, the most important one. Always ask this. You're sorry. What was that?
Yeah. The other place is thewholepiesystem.com, thewholepiesystem.com. That's the website where you get all the tools and resources, find out about the book and the system, and you can connect with me there.
Awesome. So I always ask this last question, and I didn't prep you for it, but this could be on anything we've spoken of or anything that just comes to gut. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
Say that again. What's a
unpopular belief? So an unpopular belief you hold to be true that you think most others would disagree with you on.
Oh, wow. Should I go for it?
Yes, you should.
Should I go? Yeah, right. So I think this is becoming less and less of an unpopular belief as time goes on. But, so I'm sure you're aware of Jim Collins, right?
Yep.
He's very popular. His beliefs are very popular, not unpopular. But one of the things that he said that really jumped out to me, and I'll tie this back into answering your question, is that core values don't change over time. Like a mission and vision can change over time, but your core values, that's like your DNA, that doesn't change. And your core values, if they're not, you don't change your core values to suit market conditions. If needed, you find new markets that align with your core values. So that's in a business context. Very powerful sentiment. During COVID, my wife and I applied that concept to what was going on in the world. And our core values didn't align with how, I'll just talk about our experience, the Canadian government, and in particular our provincial government, dealt with COVID. And that's why we're living in Costa Rica. The core values of limiting personal freedoms, of jumping into personal health decisions and trying to force people to make decisions they might not otherwise make, didn't align with our core values, and we needed to take a stand, and we decided to take a stand by taking our lives and our business elsewhere, and that's what ended us up in Costa Rica. So at the time, it was very unpopular. It was a very unpopular stance, but we thank goodness every day we made the decisions that we did, and we continue to stand by them.
Oh, I appreciate it. Your belief is not unpopular with me, but yeah, and I believe not most, but a lot of people are waking up to that as well. But it's still unpopular depending on your, unfortunately, political beliefs, which should have nothing to do with your own core personal values anyhow. But that would be a whole separate episode, brother. So
100%. So anyway,
we'll leave it at that.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, no, you bet. Thanks for being honest. Really appreciate this conversation and having you on the show. Wishing you all the best with the book and with the system. It's going to change many of businesses' lives. I just know it. Spartans, you know what to do. Share this episode far and wide. And if you know a small business owner that would appreciate Andy's sentiments, his words today, the system in and of itself, get it in their hands. Share this episode. Remember that good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.
This is Sparta!